Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. Welcome back to my beginner's guide to Destiny. Last time we covered the lore of humanity, and there were a lot of offshoot topics in that one because humanity is a bit of a broad and weird topic. Obviously, we all know the basics about humanity's origins, given that we are human, and that Destiny's world is based, at least in the very beginning of its human origins, on our world. However, this time we're going to be talking about the second of the playable races in Destiny, the Awoken. And for them, we're going to be covering a lot more about their origin story and how it leads them to where they are in the game now. So, without much further ado, let's begin. Much like the Exos, who we'll talk about in the next episode, Awoken are technically post-human, which is to say that they were previously human, but have now become something beyond human. But how did the Awoken become the various shades of grey, blue, and purple that they are today? The answer to that one is complicated, but it all starts with humanity in the Golden Age. Back in the Golden Age, there was a program called the Exodus Program, which was a massive colonization effort with the aim of sending human colonists beyond the solar system. It was on one of these vessels that the story of the Awoken would begin. This vessel was called Exodus Green, also known as Yang Liwei, and it would be travelling towards the outer reaches of the solar system when the collapse began. For those of you who don't remember, the collapse was basically Destiny's apocalyptic moment that sent it towards the state of affairs that it's in now. This was when the Darkness and the Pyramids and the Black Fleet, all of which are basically tied up as the same, arrived in the solar system and fought with the Traveler and cast humanity into ruin. This is a moment at which everything for the story of the Exodus Green becomes pivotal, because without this happening at the certain time that it did, they might simply have been another colony ship that passed out beyond the Kuiper Belt and left the solar system. It's unclear if any of the Exodus program vessels got that far, but we do know that the Exodus Green at very least made it a certain degree of the way. It was, however, pursued by the Pyramids and attacked with their signature style of gravity-distorting weapons. Having received word that the rest of the system was also being attacked, the Exodus Green sent a message into space towards their pursuers, informing those pursuers that they wished to be treated as a separate entity from humanity within the solar system, asking to be spared and disavowing their allegiance to humanity at large. It's not clear if what happened next was because of this, but near the vessel, light and dark clashed and coalesced, and within that titanic clash, an artificial singularity was born. A singularity in this instance, for those of you who don't know, is basically a black hole, but in this instance it was small and not such a typical world destroyer as had been seen previously, though the effect was very much the same. Yang Liwei, the Exodus Green, began to topple towards the singularity, as one would expect. But on its hull, there were two crew members who had gone EVA, who were on the side of it in spacesuits, and they were also accelerating towards the singularity, but at greater speed. One of these crew members detached herself from her tether to the ship, and she fell towards the singularity even faster. She wanted to be the first to cross the event horizon. Perhaps she thought that she was simply embracing her death more quickly. Perhaps she foresaw the great destiny that awaited her within the singularity. Regardless, the thing that we are certain of is simply her name, Mara Sov. Mara, as the first to enter the singularity, was allowed to define all that its future inhabitants, the crew of the Exodus Green, could be. She was able to craft the world within the bounds of the singularity to her wishes, though she hid this fact well, even engineering circumstances to make it seem like she was not the first of the newly reborn denizens of this new world. The people reborn in this singularity were beings of both light and dark. Their skin changed from all the normal human skin tones into tones of grey and blue and purple. A new people who shone with light and yet also were eclipsed in shadow. They were immortal, and they were called the Awoken. A distinct feature of the Awoken was the matriarchal nature of their society, given the remarkably small number of men amongst the number of the crew. The world within which all of the Awoken found themselves was a lush paradise, sealed away from the rest of the system in the safety of the black hole. Within the singularity, the world upon which the Awoken found themselves saw time pass more quickly due to the nature of the black hole, and how time is distorted by the immense gravity of a black hole. In the space that years could pass in the system outside, within the singularity, the Awoken could see millions of years elapse. The world within the singularity was named by the Awoken as the Distributory, and to this day, it is one of the most closely guarded secrets of the Awoken. But Mara knew that they could not remain in this paradise forever. Through the visions of foresight granted to her, her mother Asana Sov, and many other Awoken, Mara knew that she would need to one day return to Sol with her people. So it was that over millions of years, she manipulated the Awoken people to sway a significant number of them to her side. Whilst some wished to remain in the paradise of the Distributory, others followed Mara, and eventually left its safety, returning back to Sol. It is here that they realized that they were not immortal anymore, and that this was perhaps an interaction with the way that they were within the Distributory. Their nature had fundamentally changed when they returned, and this would have lasting and powerful consequences. When she returned, Mara Sov brought many great Awoken heroes and heroines with her. There was Syur Ido, Mara's lover, personal protector, and the first Queen's Wrath, whose marksmanship with a longbow was unmatched. There was her brother, Uldren Sov, known for his cunning and beauty amongst the Awoken people, but most staunchly known to us for the loyalty he showed to his sister, Prince of the Reef and Spymaster to the Queen. There was Keldawaj, the All-Teacher, whose wisdom and ability to mold minds in preparation for learning stood unmatched. Those who journeyed with Mara would become the first to found a new Awoken kingdom, but not before they were confronted with the knowledge of Earth and the Traveler's victory over the darkness. Upon discovering that it was still intact, and that there were indeed humans living beneath it, many Awoken wished to go to Earth and to go to the Traveler so that they could assist them immediately. This had of course been the supposed original reason for the Awoken to leave the Distributory. Mara, however, was determined to keep her people united, seeing as they were in a weakened state as they had left, and they needed to establish a firm base of operations before anything more could be done. Her desire for control over her people also extended to her desire to found the new kingdom under her bounds. Upon discovering that everything was still intact, though, everything changed. Mara was determined to keep her people united, but circumstances fell beyond her control, and so she allowed every one of the Awoken a chance to leave. Around 30% of them originally wanted to leave, and a number of them did. Those who left were known from that moment on as the Earthborn Awoken, and would split themselves off from their people for a second time. They were not allowed to return. Those that stayed by Mara's side would help to found her new kingdom within the asteroid belt. Within the great shipwrecks and massive asteroids, Mara would create the Kingdom of the Reef, and those that stayed by her side, instead of being known as the Earthborn Awoken, would be known as the Reefborn Awoken. Aloof, graceful, and often secretive, the Reefborn Awoken are a guarded and closed-off people, one that has seldom wished to reach out to other entities within the system for help, and when they have done so under the conditions of great control. However, this perhaps is with good reason. After all, they do control many powerful secrets, and if they were to be discovered, who knows what powers their enemies might be able to learn. It was only when we were permitted access to the Dreaming City a few years ago that we started to truly uncover more about this most mysterious of peoples. There are many things that we don't completely understand, but one thing we do know is that all Awoken, as of having entered Sol once more, are paracausal to a degree. The strongest amongst them are capable of powerful magics that are born of the powers of both light and dark. The powers of Mara Sov are greater in this regard than any other Awoken, though the Tekkens are also powerful users of paracausal might that should be understood and not underestimated. In time, Mara would also establish the Awoken people's connection with the Ahamkara, Destiny's so-called Wish Dragons. She did so with her special connection with the first one of them discovered by her people. It was brought to her by Uldren Sov, and it named itself Riven in honor of the twice Riven Awoken people. In time, The Wish Dragon would join the Awoken and would assist them through their magics and power in the creation of the marvelous realm known as the Dreaming City. These Wish Dragons, as they were known, could grant wishes, as their names suggested, but they often did so in a way that created suffering for those who had wished, or perhaps granted the wishes in a way that was unexpected. For example, one might wish for, say, someone to live, but that person might then live through a curse of undeath. This is just a typical example, and it has indeed happened. This is how the Scorn were created. These wishes, granted in such a manner, granted the dragons great sustenance, and as a result, the Awoken created many structures and surfaces within the Dreaming City out of amethyst, which could be used to identify when a Wish Dragon was about to use its powers, and thus could counteract any bargains made. In spite of the danger posed by such fearsome paracausal creatures, the Wish Dragons and the Awoken people learned to live in relative harmony within the Dreaming City, coming and going mostly as they pleased. That is, until the Great Hunt. The Great Hunt, as I mentioned in our first episode of the series, was a moment when the Guardians of the Lost City hunted down the Ahamkara to near extinction. The only survivor of this was Riven. Riven, who was Mara's prisoner now, within the Queen's Walk at the heart of the Dreaming City. Later in time, Mara would intervene several times in the story of humanity, allowing us to accomplish some of our greatest victories, at cost to herself and her people. She intervened when the House of Wolves encroached on her borders, effectively stopping them from taking part in the Battle of the Twilight Gap. Had they joined, humanity would have gone extinct, and the Guardians would have been destroyed unquestionably. In the process, she turned the House of Wolves to her side temporarily, and until their Kel Skolas escaped the fabled Prison of Elders, she was their Kel and commanded their loyalty. This moment at which they rose was the Wolf Rebellion, and is portrayed in Destiny's House of Wolves expansion from Destiny 1. However, Mara's greatest sacrifice would come at the Battle of Saturn. When Oryx the Taken King arrived within the system, Mara would send her forces to attack his fleet as part of a plan to allow Guardians to eventually kill the first among the Hive Gods. In the process, she would die and was taken by Oryx. Most of her fleet would be destroyed, her brother would fall to corruption, and the Dreaming City would be invaded by the creeping presence of Oryx, who would take Riven, infusing the Wish Dragon with the power of darkness. Mara would be freed from Oryx's grasp, and would make her way back to the Dreaming City through her most secret of powers, her throne world. Crafted in preparation for this moment by Riven and herself, they had once called it Eleusinia, but it was now a shattered, corrupted husk of its once proud and noble self. After returning in Forsaken, Mara oversaw the initial weeks of the fighting in the Dreaming City from afar, not truly being in contact with her people. We were able to periodically visit her through a creation known as the Oracle Engine, both a communications device and a bridge to her far-off realm. However, she would then depart, returning to the Ascendant Realm to go and face the darkness that was coming to find them. But it would not stay this way forever. Petra Venj, the second Queen's Wrath, would eventually stand and decide to form a new coven of what are known as Techeuns. We'll explain more about them in a moment, but what you should know is that these Techeuns, 13 in number, were able to bring Mara Sov back, helping her navigate out of the Ascendant Plane back towards real space. This is how the Season of the Lost truly begins, with the return of Mara Sov. The Awoken now are a fragmented and battered people, but one that still easily has enough fight left in them to be a worthy ally. If the skill of their people in battle is not to be considered, then their powerful magics and terrible secrets most certainly are. Awoken society within the Reef holds several noteworthy positions that are worth speaking about and better understanding so that you can see what the entire hierarchy of their kingdom looks like. As a matriarchal monarchy, the Awoken Kingdom of the Reef is ruled over by a sole sovereign, a queen, Mara Sov. She is the undisputed queen of the Awoken, and even in her absence, the people of the Awoken broadly still owed loyalty to her and acted in her word and her name. Beneath her is her regent, first protector, greatest military commander, and closest confidant, the Queen's Wrath. Previously, this would have been a role undertaken by Sieur Ido, but since her death, a new Wrath, known as Petra Venj, was appointed. This appointment was made just before the House of Wolves expansion in the days of Destiny 1. Petra has not had much time in her new position, but thus far, in the few years that she has had, she has done an exemplary job. Petra has long been the point of contact for the Guardians and has served diligently in her role ever since her promotion. Amongst the higher ranks also sit the Awoken Spy Master, previously a position held by Aldrin Sov, the Queen's brother. As Spy Master, which is mostly an unofficial position, Crow was able to command a number of tactical assets capable of assisting with intelligence gathering or espionage operations. Amongst those assets were the Crows, drones that were capable of gathering and reciting information. Greater still were the Corsairs. Corsairs are mostly answerable to the Queen's Wrath, but they are the Awoken's special forces and elite warriors generally. A Corsair is quick with a blade and quicker with their mind. Being able to think on their feet, they're often able to defeat overwhelming opposition through the use of asymmetric warfare and special tactics. Above the Corsairs and beneath the Queen's Wrath are the 6 other military commanders of the Awoken that stand alongside the Queen's Wrath, the Paladins. Of these 6 Paladins, 4 are assigned to the Awoken's navy and 2 to their army. The Queen's Wrath technically leads the Queen's Guard, and is also a Paladin, although is specially named, and as suggested, is primarily responsible for the protection of the Queen. The Reef also has powerful paracausal magic users known as Techeuns. Whilst it's unclear if they hold military rank, it seems clear that they answer only to Mara, as even Petra, the regent of the Awoken until Mara returned, had trouble convincing them to take certain actions, and some of them even refused to take cues from her, even though she spoke with Mara's authority. The Techeuns are the keepers of the secrets of the Distributory, powerful paracausal entities, and they have also studied paracausal energies and forces for as long as they have been in the universe, be they from the light or dark. I've used that word quite a lot in this video, so as a quick reminder, the term paracausal is one that simply implies a degree of space magic. To go into the true technicalities of it, it means that you're able to do things that are not explained by the typical laws of physics within the universe. You're essentially able to break the laws of physics, and in doing so, it's harder to explain how you've been able to acquire such power. When you, as a player, use your super, this is an expression of paracausal power. When certain enemies, such as the Ascendant Hive or the Darkness and the Pyramids, those fallen amongst the House of Salvation that have acquired darkness powers, use said darkness powers, this is also an expression of paracausal power. Things that break the universe. The Techeuns study these powers, and as a result, they are well versed in certain methods used to fight against powerful entities. They also have certain special crystals surgically grafted into their foreheads, which allows them to wield greater power and traverse ley lines more easily. For those of you who don't know what ley lines are, I've got a video that goes over them. They were talked about a lot in the Season of the Lost, but effectively they are strings and pathways that link our reality to what is known as the Ascendant Plane, a place where paracausal beings are even more powerful, and where some of them can even be mighty enough to forge a throne world. Though the Coven in current days has grown thanks to the actions and recruiting of Petra Venj, who recruited 13 new Techeuns into a new Coven so that they could be used to recover Mara Sov. Not all of these Techeuns are bound to return, and this new Coven is not as experienced as the older group that went with Mara to face Oryx. All 3 of those senior Techeuns, Shuro Chi, Sadia, and Kali, have been recovered, but that does not change the fact that the Techeun forces are now weaker in number than they used to be. The Kingdom of the Awoken stretches through the asteroid belt, from asteroids of major names such as Vesta to Pallas to Amethyst to Ceres, and into the Ascendant Plane in certain unknown and secretive locations. They are arguably one of our most powerful allies, downtrodden and beaten in general as they are. Never underestimate the story of the Awoken, and certainly don't underestimate the power of their queen or their individual troops. Mara Sov is one of the most cunning and powerful beings we've ever known. It is not like her to lose, and when she comes to a fight, she is prepared to win and to take all necessary risks to do so. She has the backing of a kingdom that is willing to fight for her to the last, with blade and gun and tooth and nail, with every fibre of their being, with every iota of effort that they can muster. This is a kingdom that will fight to the death for their one true queen. This is a kingdom that is not prepared to lose. Should you play as an Awoken in Destiny, something else rather special will happen. There's an interaction that you can sometimes have with other Awoken, particularly if you start exploring Awoken territories. Other Awoken will refer to you as cousin, as a reflection of the fact that you as a Guardian are still an Awoken, regardless of whether you were technically raised as Reefborn or Earthborn. There is a distant kinship between all Awoken, although technically that kinship does not truly extend towards all Awoken from all places. There has been a consistent rivalry between the Earthborn and Reefborn Awoken, but regardless, I think it is fair to say that in this time now, we see the Awoken as allies, even if some of them are pricklier in nature. That's all from me for now, though. I hope you found this useful, and I hope that it was something that helped you understand a little bit more about the world of Destiny. To understand more about the Awoken, I definitely tune in to all the content I'm making this season. It is centered around the Awoken and the key characters of the Awoken. You can watch videos like the one on Argus Scepter in particular to get a more broad overview of the story of the Awoken. But I am actually going to be doing a series covering the whole of the Awoken's story. You see, I think this is important, and it's a major thing that I actually missed back in the days of the last time that we actually went to the Dreaming City and explored the time of the Awoken. Namely, the time back in Forsaken. So, I'm going to go over all of the important times of the Awoken and all of the important lore, namely the Mara Senna, the Awoken of the Reef Lorebook, and the Maraid, which is from Destiny 1, and catalogues the events of the Reef Wars. So, with all of that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and leave a thumbs up, and if you have any of your own thoughts, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments section. If you're a new player in particular, and you want something covered beyond the 10th episode, when I'm done covering all of the allied races you can play, and all of the enemy races that you'll be fighting against, go ahead and let me know, because if you do have another topic, I really want to hear from you in particular. I'm not entirely sure what you guys do and don't know, considering that I've been playing this game for 7 or 8 years now, and I am certainly not in the mindset of somebody who's new to this and has all sorts of questions. If there's a burning topic that I absolutely need to cover, go ahead and let me know, and I'll do my best to fit things into the schedule after that. But in the meantime, that's all from me for now. Thank you so much again for watching, and know that as per usual, your viewership is quite enough for me, and that my name is Byf. Parodasia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.